finishing up the Midah HaShlishis ועובר על פשע. And we explained that ועובר על פשע does not mean only that he passes over our pesha, meaning he overlooks our pesha. In fact, it might be even apocalyptic to say such a thing, that he overlooks our pesha. The loimer shakadosh baruch hu mevater hu mevater lo min hashamayim. Of course, not mevater necessarily. Mevater lo chayav. No second lashon in the Gemara. So Ramak explains that over al pesha, if you look at it deeply, doesn't mean he passes over it visually, but he passes over it with a scrub brush and gets involved in the aver that we do, which is a violation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by our behavior, and it's a stain or a mark that we make, a violation that we do to our own neshamas by not listening to not reading the instructions correctly and not listening to them. But it would be normal for our Kadosh Baruch Hu or for any of us to say, look, you've created a problem, you fixed the problem. It's not something that I have to deal with. The clear mashal is if somebody does something that hurts us and they ask us shlit'a, we could be mochel them. But if they say that I'm suffering from such inner grief because of what I've done and I'm feeling stressful all day, and I'm not saying, okay, as a psychologist, I'm not I could do my part. I could say, I accept your apology. That's the most I could do. So it doesn't work that way. It works that way on perhaps on a business level, but on a neshama level, it doesn't work that way. It just HaKadosh Baruch Hu gets involved in helping us remove the fleck, the contradiction that we ourselves created within our neshama. If a person does something terrible, hurts another person, very hard to live with yourself, right? If you're a good person, it's hard to live with yourself. So it's hard to live with yourself. So you have a problem, but the person that he violated doesn't have that problem. Good for you that it's hard to live with yourself. That's the way it should be. You're getting your own onish. Rabbi Haber mentioned a couple of times says that hachet atzmai hu ha'onish. Hachet atzmai hu ha'onish. Rabbi Haber says, oh, you don't have to go beyond what I've done to myself to create an onish. You don't need an outside onish to come in. So the operating proof text here is that the Torah says, Ki imcha haslicha leman tivarei. Ki imcha haslicha, we say to Hashem, forgive us, but not just forgive us, Ki imcha haslicha. So imcha, the diuk is, it's not Ki itcha haslicha. It's up to you to forgive us. Ki imcha, together with you. That's what imcha means. Imcha noichi b'tzara. Right? The ki imcha makor chaim. So the big word here is imcha, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is involved with this. So we need to understand, and we started to understand yesterday, what does it mean that he's involved? Why can't he do this through a malach like he does everything else through a malach? Because everything is all malachim anyways. Refuah, Misa, everything is malach. Why can't this be through a malach also? Why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu himself have to get involved with it? And it's mashma that it's not just a chesed, but it's a responsibility of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, if you will. If I could speak such a language, it's a responsibility of a Kadosh Baruch Hu to work with us on those places in which we violated our own neshama, providing that we want to change. You got to want to change. So meaning you have to do Tshuva. So with Tshuva, Kadosh Baruch Hu works with us.
When Adam said that to Hashem, you gave her to me, that's kind of the same thing. After,
It's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah. So you have to work with me.
Well said. In other words, so we're looking at that pasuk and we say we're blaming Hashem for it. Right. Isn't that a crazy human thing to do? Right. But the Torah records it as a davar nitzchi. It is something that. So I pointed out yesterday. I just want to elaborate on this for a second. I pointed out yesterday that the very fact there's a couple of things here. The very fact that a person is in conflict, is struggling with something wrong that they did, is something very, very positive about the person. That's the first thing. If you're a hardened criminal, you don't struggle with it. Bang, you shoot the guy, another one. You forget how many people you killed yesterday. You're just a serial killer, a hardened criminal. So the very fact that a person is struggling, first of all, tells you something good about that person. But in our case, in our case of struggling with something that we've done that we know we shouldn't do, in a Beinam L'Makom, there's something good about us that we're struggling. But if I'm allowed to say this, we've also putting some of the obligation and even responsibility on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As you say, Ha'isha asher nasat li, she made me do it. You know, we shift at least part of the blame onto HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Mekubalim tell us that imcha, ayin mem chaf, is who's good at this? What's the gematria of imcha? 278. Save time. Right? 278. Mekubalim tell Sefer Yitzirah. It's the same. Ki imcha. Ki imcha.
It's also round numbers. It's also round.
Ki imcha haslicha. Ki imcha. I got a chazir. You say very Yitzirah. I guess I got it. Ki imcha haslicha. Nachon. Chaim, you're our accountant here. Ki imcha haslicha.
It ends with the name.
Ki imcha. Somebody work it out for me quickly. Ki imcha haslicha. 278. Why do I remember the 278? Because that's the no.
Rounded numbers with a chet and a head. 278.
No, it ends.
Yeah.
278.
278.
Gil says yes. Nimnu v'gamru. Ki imcha haslicha sold. 278. Which is the same gematria as Ohr HaGanuz.
Ah.
It's easier. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is Sefer Yitzirah. Sefer Yitzirah says, which is the same gematria as Ibor, meaning the days of the pregnancy, which is almost the same gematria as Hirayon, which means pregnancy. So the Gemara says indeed that a pregnancy can be 271 days, 272, 73, 274. Machlokes, but it's between two. The Gemara says different choices of pregnancy depending on certain factors. A pregnancy could be between 271 days Hirayon to 278 days Ibur, Malay, like Malay Zman HaIbur. And Gemara says that one of the Amoraim would only live with his wife on Wednesday, so she shouldn't come to Chilul Shabbos by the birth.
What's it changed?
Nothing changed, no.
What?
Nothing changed. Nothing. What's changed? What do you mean it hasn't changed?
No, women were so regular back then. It was like hard to copy.
Right. It's all the same thing. So what? I'm not just playing here with numbers. It's not my thing to do. But ki imcha haslicha. The point is that sometimes you look at a person and they really get annoying. It's like really get on your nerves. Does everyone suffer from this or just me?
Starting.
Well, I'm starting to get on your nerves. Really, probably the older you get, the more, so like, as we get on your nerves, the tolerance level goes very, very Dacus. But sometimes when you realize, like I just give a muscle, like whenever I like meet somebody, I become friends or I learn with something, whatever the relationship is. Like I always love to meet their father, but it's like, can I introduce you to my father? I'd love to meet your father, because if I understand the father, if I see the father, then I understand a lot more about the son. So like, I mean, just a couple of months ago, there's somebody like here in the community that walks down the street in a very funny way. I was like, why do they walk around like that? Like, I just think, why do they walk around like that? I couldn't figure out like why he walks around that. It just seemed to be like some kind of, got on my nerves. But then his father came to visit. I saw he walks the same way. Okay, Beseder. Because as a Yerusha probably goes back to the Baal Shem Tov. Like, why do you walk? I mean, okay, that's like, you can't blame the guy for walking the same way his father, probably his grandfather walked that way. So stop getting on my nerves. Sometimes, what I'm saying is that sometimes you realize that it's not the person's fault. Ki'ilu, this is something they come by naturally, so it's not a shtick. It's not some kind of a craziness that they've adopted. And what gets on a person's nerves? Like, why are you doing that? Be normal, be yourself. But I mean, if they're born that way, it's not such a problem. But in the case of a father looking at a child, and the child gets on your nerves, your own child gets on your nerves, now it becomes like even more serious. Like, hey, I walk that way. I get the things that bother us about our own children are the things that we know came from us. I think the things that bother us about our own parents are the things that we know that we've inherited. So it's a very, it's very endemic to the personality. So when we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, hey, who created us anyway? Like, okay, you've got this, we've got this problem, we've got this chasaron, we've got this. We're getting on your nerves, but who created us that way? Where does it come from? You. So, we got it from you ultimately. The handicaps, the weaknesses. So the ki imcha haslicha. Ki imcha haslicha is a very deep idea. That we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're in this together, really. It's not itzcha haslicha. We're not just asking you for an apology as if we're some kind of an independent concept. We're part of a bigger thing here. We're part of what you've created. Maybe you didn't create it with me, maybe you created my great-grandfather, but it's something that you've put into this world. So we require not just a little bit of understanding, but we require you to be accepting and to work with us on us. And not only that, it's almost a little bit hard. Again, it's hard to say these words with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's a little bit your fault. So and you're the one who understands this better than anybody, oh Father. So now help me with it. Don't criticize me with it, but help me with it. So it becomes ki imcha slicha. Hence, ki imcha slicha is the Ohr HaGanuz. The Ohr HaGanuz refers to in the Sefer Yetzirah, the second chapter of the Sefer Yetzirah, refers to the fact that there's the Neshama. Basically, it means the Neshama. It doesn't mean anything more than the Neshama for our purposes here. Meaning that this is something which is very, very deep within me. This is all part of what I am. My character is part of what you created. So if my character is part of what you created, I need that kind of a siyata. That's my Ohr HaGanuz. That's my Ohr HaGanuz. That's my hidden light. So if that's my Ohr HaGanuz, gematria ki imcha haslicha. So it's befitting for you and only you to get involved with this and to help. And that's why it's not by accident that the Yemei Ha'ibor is ki imcha haslicha. The Mei Ha'iroyin is ki imcha haslicha. It's all one thing. This is not something that I've done externally. It's something that I am. Not to say that I shouldn't work on it and improve it, but we're talking about sort of sharing the blame. Let me just say something here that I might have mentioned before. The pasuk says that Kemayim panim al panim. So the Pasuk Pshat, what Shlomo Melech said, is that Kemayim panim al panim, that a person's face, if I'm looking at you and you're looking at me, it's like we're looking into the water. Water was as close as they got in the olden days to a mirror. So, what's the Pasuk Pshat? Pasuk Pshat is beautiful. Like, Pasuk Pshat is beautiful. Generally speaking, if you smile into the water, you get a smile back. If you frown and growl into the water, you get a growl back. And it's Baduk Medusa that if you want to break a cycle of violence, so if you create a certain panim, you get that panim back. You could experiment with this at the Bituach Leumi or something. Kemayim panim up. Positive shot, very nice. Like the other person is a reflection of the energy that you're putting out. It's nice. It comes to Baal Shem Tov, and he roots this whole teaching because he says that it's a mirror, meaning Baal Shem Tov flips this around, and it's so sharp because he says that a mirror means that you're really getting a glimpse of yourself. Now, it might be true that if you smile into the mirror, you're going to smile back. But there's something more true than that about a mirror, and that is that what you're seeing there is really yourself. So here, you're looking at another person, and you're saying, why are you so annoying? And the answer is, because I'm annoying. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts in front of you a chativas mayim, as he puts it, a mirror, and says, everyone says, it's like a gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Here, you want to see what you look like? Because we don't realize what we look like. Sometimes I get into a lot of chuppahs and brisim and this and that, so people are always sending me pictures, and I go, hey, there's a reality check there, the things, you always wonder, why aren't people smiling? I'm looking, so not smiling. So, there's something, says the Baal Shem Tov, there's something much deeper about Kamayim, Panim al Panim, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts that mirror in front of us to show you what you are. So, now when somebody, it's certainly true of a parent-child relationship. It's probably true in a husband-wife relationship. It's probably the pshat in the Gemara, mum shabach al titen b'chaverecha. That there's a tendency, dafka. Why will you see a mum that nobody else sees in another person? Because you have that mum. Takes one to know one, as they say in English. So there's something. So all of a sudden, not only am I looking at the person in a different way, but all of a sudden I have a certain obligation, not just to help him, but to help myself and to fix the whole dynamic that's going on. So it gives us a whole new way of. So it's a little bit sharp, this Baal Shem Tov. As I say, I was a prison chaplain for a long time. So, I hate to think that these were all a bunch of mirrors. Serial killers, mafia people. I dealt with the chosheва, it's people that were totally uncaring about other people, and I'm not any of those things. It's not that I'm any of those things. But the things that really annoy you means that there's some type of shemetz there somewhere, which has to be mesukam. So it's a new obligation. Tough to say about HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but true to say about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sof kol sof. Ha'isha tabasata. Very, very good pasuk. You set the situation up. You're the one who created me with my gene system. You're the one who created me with my personality. People are created the same. So what we can't blame on our fathers, we can blame on God. And it doesn't, again, relieve us of the responsibility of Tshuva, and it doesn't allow us or matra us to do anything, because that's not Judaism. Judaism is that you have free choice. But it does explain and put a certain obligation on He that created us on all levels. Hence all the gematриas. And it also makes us want to look at the Ohr HaGanuz. The Ohr HaGanuz is to understand the depth of the neshama that's here.
What does Hashem do? That's the cleansing part of it.
So I think
the scrubbing.
What's the scrubbing? So the pashut, the pshat, and the scrubbing is the yisurim that we have. But I don't think it's only about in other words, let's define that. What is yisurim? What do I mean by yisurim? We have to go through pain, but in other words, there's a certain cleansing that goes on through trials and tribulations, and what we need to do is understand that the yisurim shel ahava. What does that mean? Yisurim Shel Ava. It's something that we need to go through to get past this issue.
So why Hashem wears tefillin and has us in the tefillin?
So that's the relationship, right? Look, I don't have to. This is not my profession, really. It's not, I don't have to say this, but it's clear that Al Pi Rov, most shalom bias problems are all about blaming the other person. Now, it doesn't mean your wife's not annoying, but it also doesn't mean that you're not annoying. So it's so clear to me, just from my own life and just talking to hundreds and hundreds of other people. It's so clear to me that the minute a person realizes that there's a mirror here, and the things that are sort of getting on my nerves are very much not just you but me. Otherwise, it wouldn't even get on my nerves. It wouldn't get on my nerves. Let's say, let me be blunt. Let's say, most people, there's certain things that their parents do that embarrass them. So this is a very interesting thing. How come everybody else loves your parents? Unbelievable. These are nice people. Geschmack, yeah. Why does he do that all the time? It's just that Baruch Hashem, I had a very close relationship with my father. Funny kind of relationship, but a close relationship. But it's just interesting, all the things that sort of got on my nerves growing up when it came to all the tanchumim coming, hundreds of emails and nichum avelim, and which still happens. The things that they point to as his wonderful attributes were all the things that got on my nerves. It's a davar nifla. Those are the things that people enjoy. So why that dynamic is, I don't know. So my nafkamina, the nafkamina is that what we need to understand is that on one level that there has to be Kadosh Baruch Hu has to be involved. He can't do this with a malach. He has to be involved in the cleansing process. However he does it. To answer your question, I believe that there's if you're open to it, there's siyata d'shmaya that happens all the time, which allows us to have hisayrus to tshuva. And I think that's really what the involvement is. There's a certain hashgacha pratis. Part of the hashgacha pratis in the cleansing process is by encountering somebody who has the same thing that you have, and you can say, "Oh, that's ugly," and make that kind of a change. And this is how we can grow. That's the Baal Shem Tov, which is I think important for life and for understanding the ki imcha slicha, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is lo ya'idei shliach, lo ya'idei malach. He has to do it. It's not somebody from the outside. He has to do it because he's part and parcel with who we are and what we are. And then there's the deeper or maybe more psychological level that we spoke about yesterday, that the fact of the matter is that if a person hurts another person, if we hurt another person, and we say, slicha, I apologize, and you accept my apology, it's really not over. It's really not over. V'haraya, the person, if somebody hurts you, you might accept their apology, but you're really not going to look at them the same way. You're not going to trust them the same way that you did before, which is catastrophic when it comes to a marriage or a family situation in general. It can't be. So you say, okay, I apologize. I didn't, this is what I did. Okay, apologize. No, it doesn't matter. We're not happy. We drive a person crazy. I'm not happy with you accepting my apology. Are you okay with it? Well, okay with it. You hurt me. So work with me. So now there's a certain obligation that the offended one has to work with the offender, because really you could do all the therapy in the world, and you could drink and take drugs. You could do whatever you want. It's not going to take away, or it's not going to recreate a situation. And the only one that can do that is the person himself who was offended. Now, don't couple that with the fact that it's that person who's also, it takes two to tango, that person was also involved in it. I'm not saying the guilt is there. I'm talking about with tshuva. let's say a person has to feel guilty every time somebody annoys them. I'm just saying that we have to understand things deeply, that I'm also part of this scenario. So at least the whole. So I bet you yesterday, I think that the kasha zivugim kikriyas yamsuf. So it's hard to make zivugim doesn't mean to find a shidduch. I don't think. I don't think that's what it means. It's easy to find a shidduch. The hard part is keeping it, keeping it going for a number of decades. That's the hard part. So when the Gemara says kasha zivugim kikriyas yamsuf, find a shidduch. There's a good shot that you find a shidduch. Yeah. But a zivug means two people two half neshamas coming together as one. That's what a zivug means. That's what it means. The definition of the word, the translation of the word. To be zavig is not to introduce, bo takir. Let me introduce you and hope some chemistry happens. That's not that's what it means. It means that two people together. This is a very difficult thing. Finding a shidduch is not, finding a mate is not difficult. Keeping it, that's the hard part. It's after the chuppah that the fun begins. So that's Kriyas Yamsuf. Why the mashal of Kriyas Yamsuf as opposed to the kasha zivugim, like mun falling on our heads or any other of the numerous miracles that we sing about in Dayenu. I mean, why dafka Kriyas Yamsuf? So did I mention yesterday? My Rebbe explained that water is a very interesting thing. B'chlal, that and here's Kimayim Panabal Panab, the water bushel again. But water, you can imagine splitting apart. That's pretty remarkable. But then it comes back, and nobody can find the seam even. Where did this Kriyas Yamsuf take place exactly? There should be some kind of a marker in the water. Nothing. Everything is smooth. Everything is the kasha zivugim Kriyas Yamsuf is not for two people to be able to live together. It's to be able to
seamlessly
to create this kind of a symbiotic relationship where it becomes seamless. And even though there's all kinds of problems, nobody's butter from this, except for very superficial people. Even though there's all kinds of problems, but the fact of the matter is, when it comes back together, v'chazer hamayim le'esanoi, comes back with tremendous amount of koach. And you can't even remember what were we arguing about, what we were fighting about. How can such a seamless restoration possibly take place? The only way it can take place is if two people are involved in the help. So just like HaKadosh in fixing up this situation, there's never a story where this is your problem. Go fix yourself.
It kills the enemy.
What do you mean?
It kills the enemy when the water comes back.
That's right. That kills the enemy. It's all buried under there.
Yeah.
A minute after Kriyas Yamsuf, nobody can see that there was a Kriyas Yamsuf here. So smooth, so flowing. Everything went back to exactly the way it was. So that's a good siman, if you really resolved an issue, or have you just covered over the issue. And you never, and it's just going to reappear and reappear and reappear. So and the only way to do that is for both people to be involved. So that's what's the point? The point is that let's remember the Ohr HaGanuz of the 278, the 278. But the nekuda is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Loya Yedei Shliach, Loya Yedei Malach gets involved in our HaGanuz. I just want to say, yesterday we were talking a little bit about the fact that, I think you said he talks about it here on the bottom even, huh? Just about the Tshuva Ba'akum. Tshuva Ba'akum. Maybe, somebody told me, but it's a very interesting subject to be. I was telling a couple of people a story after this year. Yeah, Rabbi Yaacov, I was telling a story that I wrote a sefer when I was 17, 18 years old. I wrote a sefer called Chidushay Rabbi Yosef Engel al HaTorah. Rabbi Yosef Engel wrote many svar, wrote 101 svar. We have of them 10, 11 svar. The 10, 11 svar are brilliant. And Rabbi Yosef Engel is a great polisher. Gon HaGon, Rabbi Yosef Engel is the Rav of Krakow. Krakow. but his Svarim are so disorganized. It's like when you're such a goat like that, he just writes, and it's very difficult. So I've always had this derech, which I don't know if it's a good idea or not a good idea, which is what I do. I've always had this derech that I always take a mechaber, an author, and I go through it from top to bottom, because I just don't feel like you can just take a piece from the Basilis Yashar or a piece. You got to understand the whole. So if you're going to learn Basilis Yashar, you should learn everything in the Ramchal, I think, and understand it that way. See what this contribution is, and it's an amazing thing, by the way, when you do such a thing, which is just keep on going, sefer by sefer. First of all, you can become a baki in a lot of Torah if you remember anything that you learned, which is a different story. But besides that, you always develop a Rebbe. You always have a Rebbe. It's not just like like if you learn from somebody, I got a paragraph from him, or an oisachas, or a halacha achas. No, you have a Rebbe muvah, because now the Ramchal is a Rebbe. So anyways, I had such a. You're going to go through Reb Tzadok, go through Rabbi Yaacov Haber, go through Ramchal. It's an interesting way of learning, different than I think anybody else learns. But it was at that time I was going through Rabbi Yaacov Haber, picked it up, was impressed, started from the beginning, went to the end. So and was so disorganized that I couldn't know what to do with it. I couldn't, so I just kept for myself notes of according to the psukim of the Torah. He draws a lot on psukim and on midrashim and on gemaras. So I just organized it. So I have a sefer Rabbi Yaacov Haber, bestseller. Printed 1,000, sold 1,000. I think I have 3 left that I kept for my grandchildren. That's Rabbi Yaacov Haber. So in there, looking for footnotes when you're writing a book like this. So finding a source for something, it becomes like the milcham tishal Torah, like your life becomes obsessed with how did he know that? What's the source? Because my job is to write the footnotes. So one of the things that he writes there is yadua. It's well known. She'ein tshuva ba'akum. The Goyim can't do tshuva. That's what he writes. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's well known, but I didn't know that. Why can't the Goyim do tshuva? The whole Ninveh, the whole story of Yonah, the story about Goyim doing tshuva. How can you possibly say that a Goy can't do tshuva? And I'm looking for a makor someplace. They didn't have them, you couldn't Google it. But I'm looking at all the collections and encyclopedias and wherever I couldn't find anything. So I asked a lot of Talmidei Chachamim. I remember asking Rav Scheinberg, who I think knew everything, Kol HaTorah Kula, and I said to him, I showed him, it's Kenish Zayin. So he told me, it's Kenish Zayin. So I said, but it says, Ein Tshuva Ba'akum. So anyways, I was left without a source on my notebook. I had this question mark, like, where is he, Adua? So at that time, I was telling a couple of people a story yesterday, at that time, I was a bacher. So Rabbi Yosef was the chief rabbi of Israel at that time. And chief rabbi of Israel, on one of the nights of Hanukkah, each chief rabbi lights the candles at the koso, the Hanukkah candles. So I was at the koso, and I see Rabbi Yosef. I didn't know that was that, but that's what it was. He was coming, and I see a big crowd gathering, and people standing like in a big line all the way out to the car, and to be Mekabel Panim, the chief rabbi of Israel, who was Goyin HaGoyinim, and everybody's shaking his hand and kissing his hand, and I see that every once in a while somebody's asking him something, so I thought that was okay too. So I also stood in line, and when he came to me, I said, Eifo Katuv, Ein Tshuva Ba'akum. So here's the man who knows everything. So he told me, Rabbi Yosef Engel. Rabbi Yosef Engel, and he quoted to me the page. So at this moment I was sure that there was no source. It's impossible for there to be a source. Dafka, a couple of days ago, I have a sefer here, Rutz Katzvi, written by Rabbi Tzvika Reisman, who's, what did you call him? Torah Devorah B'Bakav Echad. He's a businessman in Los Angeles, who's a big Talmid Chacham, the Chevron Beis Medrash is named after him. He's a big philanthropist, a big Talmid Chacham, and he puts out every couple of months another sefer of his Divrei Torah. So he has a chapter of Ein Tshuva Ba'akum, but he brings all kinds of sources, actually. It's like interesting, but but what's the probably the evidence is that there's some kind of a tshuva by Goyim, but it's not the same kind of tshuva that we can do. What does it mean? That the tshuva, there's tshuva mi'ava, there's tshuva mi'yira. That's the two big classifications. But there's also, there's a lot of If I hurt somebody, I could say, I'm sorry, I could apologize, you could accept my apology. It's Tshuva. I could apologize for why, because I'm scared, or because I'm just sick of fighting with you, or there's all kinds of reasons to apologize. That could be Tshuva. But it's what does the conclusion that I came to is that what there isn't is a complete restoration of the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and that person. Why not? Why not? Like, why can't there be? The answer is
they don't get that scrubbing.
because, well, not only that, they don't have the Ohr HaGanuz to begin with. So even if you scrub, you're not going to necessarily find anything. This is not an anti-goy thing. I like goy, but to some extent, to the extent that they don't kill us, I like. But I don't have any problem with goy. I'm just saying that it's a different. It's clearly. What we need to believe is that that there's a different kind of a neshama here. And it has nothing to do with how brilliant we are, it has nothing to do with how good looking we are, how talented we are. It's simply a different kind of neshama. And that different kind of neshama is the 278, the Ohr HaGanuz, the Ibur, the Hiroyan, the Chelek Elikai, which is the Vayipach Ba'apam Nishmas Chaim. All the going, by the way, could have had this, but in Mountain Torah they were given the choice to exercise their Salam Aleichem, but they chose against it. We don't want that. We don't want that.
The Ishbitzer, the Tzaddik that we discussed about the Goyim after the Mabul were Gedurim and Nairo. Well, I said it to somebody else, and he said the Ishbitzer writes in the Beis Yaakov writes that they don't have the concept of hero. What they had was a concept of self-preservation.
Survive.
Maybe to survive after the Mabul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's possibly why they don't have the necessary characteristics for the Tshuva as a Jew understands it.
Same thing. So the Gemara says that the Ohr HaGanuz HaKadosh Baruch Hu is goynes l'tzadikim la'asalav. So the key word here is ganuz. It's a very, very hidden thing. So what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we have this neshama. HaKadosh Baruch Hu recognizes the neshama within us, and is willing to scrub to get to it and take responsibility for some of the wayward ways that we have gone. And that's the so ein tshuva ba'akum means that complete kriyas yamsuf and vayoshav hamayim le'isonai. This will never be by a guy. By the way, a person's Megayer. So now you go back to your Har Sinai situation and say, look, had I been there, I would have said yes. Like the Mishnah Melech says, like when Kodesh Baruch Hu went around to all the nations of the world, said, "Do you want the Torah? You want the Torah?" So they said, "No, no, no, no." They all said no. There was one or two individuals that said yes. They were just outvoted and outshouted. Well, maybe they said yes. So those are the Gerim. Those are the Gerim that are going to be for all the generations. That they say a big, loud, a resounding yes. Sometimes a bigger yes than we have. So what happens at that point? That they get this Ohr HaGanuz, they got it already then, maybe, but this Ohr HaGanuz is there just like it's there with us. There's a zero difference in this regard in terms of the neshama between a Ger Tzedek, and that's why it's so important that the Kabbalah Satira, the Kabbalah Zageris is sincere and for the right reasons, and not for money and not to get married. That's why this is so sincere. So it has to be so sincere because otherwise it's not the full thing. So that Ohr HaGanuz is something that HaKadosh Baruch Hu recognizes within us. Now the same Nakuda is the Nakuda that we can recognize if we're working for Hashem in the Tzalom Elokim capacity. It's the same thing that we can afford somebody else in terms of working with them. There's a certain amount of not dismissal, but a certain amount of hope and trust and looking deeply at a person and seeing what their goodness is, and it's always there. There's always some goodness there, and even the bad things are only bad because they're so good. When you think about it, it'd be a whole different way of bringing up our kids. And my kids are mostly grown. I wish I would have thought about this 25 years ago, but it was to some extent I did, but not enough. It's a whole different way of bringing up our kids to teach them about their neshama and not in a weird way. In a good way. Teach them about their uniqueness and the work that they have to do, and to recognize that there's godless here. and to polish the godless like HaKadosh Baruch Hu polishes it with us. Just keep on polishing, keep it with Ava. With Ava, if need be, with Yisurim, but that's not the normal way of doing them. Not with Kas, not with, just with a tremendous amount of Ava. So let's just finish this before we end the day here, the week. It's exactly this way that a person has to be. Person should never say v'chiadi b'sakid b'shaploy dechata hishchus. That's the problem. Why should I be b'sakid what you did wrong? You destroyed it. What do you want from me? Lo yoyber kach sharei ha'adam chayte. Because take a look. The person does a chet v'akadosh baruch hu ba'atzmai. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, and I will insert, takes responsibility, gets involved. Lo yadei shliach personally. B'sakid es b'avoisa v'roichatz tzayas avoda. He's willing to cleanse us. Scrub. And here, by the way, the Devorah does something that he doesn't do, to my knowledge, anywhere else in the first chapter. He goes, usually there's a symmetry in the Devorah. He says about this is what Hashem does, and therefore this is what you should do. And now, that's the end of the chapter. Here he goes back. Now a person has to give a personal, like, okay, we did that. We got to the Ben Lamako. We understand now the Ben Cordovero. We understand what we have to do. But he goes back to give a sort of a musar krechts that say, how much do we have to, think about what happens when we do Tshuva, and then Lashuv Lachter, that we go back to a way. We're Rabish being Matriach HaKadosh Baruch Hu to cleanse again. To put it in my words, look at the disappointment we're creating in the Borei Olam. I've invested so much time in you, and I will invest more time in you, but it's such a tircha. So it's like this is out of symmetry for the Devorah, but he says it. Again, the Melech has to come and clean things up. So, like here, let's just go back to finish it off. This is what you have. Like, people don't. You could have an offense take place, a relationship breach take place. You could fix it, and you put a lot of time, an hour, a week, a year into fixing it, and then a couple years later, there it is again. So, okay, must speak, no? Like, no, that's what he's saying at the end. HaKadosh Baruch Hu goes this over and over and over again. Like, it's like if we look at our own behavior, so what is it? We got perfect, that's it? We don't mess up anymore? That's what life is. You go back and forth and back and forth. So this is what the relationships have to be. There is no one fix as we would like to think that there was. It's not like a Yispayish Adam. Like, again, I did this, but again, we have to come and fix it. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, and the more we do, more Hashem does. That's the thing to remember. Today's Thursday, so continue sleep this morning to Shabbos, and then Sunday we're Hashem. We're awake. Continue.
Good.